So welcome back to part 2 of our Eco Recap podcast, because we just could not possibly fit it into one podcast. We're still only on day 2, but we'll try and condense and go faster this time.
We're going to be able to do it because we know what we're doing now. We weren't prepared mentally, emotionally, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, we did. And we just kind of introed a lot on the other one.
So if you want the intro, if you want to know what ECO was or what it was like, listen to the first podcast.
Yeah, go check out part 1. I have all my slides pulled up, so
I love it.
If you're watching on YouTube, I will be looking off to the side.
Oh, same.
And not at the camera.
I'm gonna constantly be reading and looking and like not zoned in on the camera too. So like get used to it. Sorry, but if you're on the podcast, you won't know the difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're jumping right in with day 2, and they did. The first talk was Dr. Darren Schmidt, so from the Collar Up Protocols for Sinus, Ear, and Oral Health. I loved this talk.
Me too. It was so good.
I love Dr. Darren. And I don't know, the mouth just fascinates me, like how it connects to things.
Yeah.
It's just super fascinating to me.
And after this is another dental talk, but the woman that gives the one after did last ECO, and she talked about like pretty much how like so each tooth is like to a different organ. Mm-hmm. And when we think about, this is what's so wild to me, because dentistry, they just assess your mouth. Yeah. They just assess your mouth in traditional dentistry. They don't think about it as being tied to the whole rest of the body. Mm-hmm. And like that's what they go into. It's like, no, your mouth is not isolated from your body. Like if you have an infection in your mouth and you're swallowing that every day, is there an infection in your gut? Maybe, right? Things like that.
Mm-hmm. And even just the people that get root canals and they're not properly cleaned, and they get a infection from the root canal in that tooth and they don't even realize it. And then they have something pop up like, I see breast cancer a lot connected to root canals, or like fillings where they had the amalgam fillings done, the mercury fillings.
And that's the interesting thing, because even in the like functional space, I feel like it's very much like you think about the mercury amalgam fillings being tied into the rest of your body into potential heavy metal toxicity. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people they stop there with the mouth, right? Yeah. Or maybe like Ayurveda, like oil pulling to like cleanse the mouth in the morning. But like, again, it usually stops there. It doesn't go into like dental infections and like when you get extractions and things like that, which love it. It's so interesting. It's so fascinating. Biological dentistry, man.
I'm kind of surprised he actually did this one, because he's not a dentist.
I know. I actually heard people talking smack in the bathroom. I was just sitting on the toilet, minding my own beeswax, and a couple people were saying, from like dental hygienists or whatever, were like, Darren can't say this, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's a load of baloney. And like, I am still coming up with like, how I believe on it, right? Because I am not in the dental world, but so take everything with a grain of salt. All of these talks, everyone comes in with their own biases. That's just the truth.
Right. But I mean, I think it's really interesting, just the things that he's seen. And I think that's really what he was sharing, was just things that he's seen, connections, and just stuff that he has done.
Anecdotes are crazy powerful.
Mm-hmm. And he talked a lot about using a water pick and then using hydrogen peroxide and baking soda. Yeah. And he mentions that he has a patient that regrew his gums doing that.
That was wild to me.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I got a water pick after last ECO because of this.
Did you? My parents used to have a water pick. And honestly, I loved it, but I don't have one now. But this makes me want to get one.
I still have mine, and now I have to get the hydrogen peroxide. Mm-hmm. They say 12% food grade. In case anyone's listening to this, I'm not going to give you the rest of the ratios, but 12% food grade.
During the time of the patient using the water pick, an infection appeared in his right ear for 5 days and then disappeared down his throat. It cured a hidden infection.
Wow.
I mean, yeah.
And then, because he's like, I had known about treating ears topically, right? Like we see post-nasal drip, all that, but like it drips down to the throat, goes into the gut, and now it makes even more sense that it's not just the ears, it's the mouth, it's all of it, right? It's all tied in. Their ENT is ears, nose, throat type of doctor.
Yeah. This one I really like, his patient with the chronic staph infections. Her dermatologist told her it originated from her nose, and she was given a topical antibiotic. And so he asked her, why did the MD say nose? Why not ears, tonsils, throat, mouth? The patient's like, I don't know. So I asked her, did you have a hidden infection above the neck? Where would it be? And then she showed him infected gum recession. And so she used the water pick and hydrogen peroxide, and her skin looked better over the next 2 months.
It's also something you have to use consistently, right? It's not a one and done thing.
Yeah.
And we're not claiming anything. We are not medical doctors. This is just what we heard about. But that was wild. Again, his anecdotes mean something to me because he has a huge practice.
Yeah, he has a lot of... I've come across a lot of people that know who he is or have worked with him.
I love that.
Personally.
Yeah, and he's just like telling us, like all his practitioners, to really like focus on the neck up, right? Because we focus on total body. Don't just ignore this part. Don't ignore dental infections. Don't ignore ear infections. Don't ignore things like that, like the sinuses, all of that stuff.
I feel like a lot of people do, though. Like you said, they just forget about the teeth. They think, we brush our teeth and like we're fine.
Yeah, and you're like, I use a non-toxic toothpaste or whatever, but like there's so much more to it. Again, root canals, all of that stuff is so like just getting extractions. They even talk about how that can like play a big role into your dental health. And I didn't even think about that because I'm like, I had so many teeth pulled when I was a child.
I mean, if they don't properly clean it, if they don't properly close it up, like stuff gets in there and it's going to cause a bacteria or an infection. I mean, right here it says like pathogenic bacteria causing cavities and receding gums in the mouth are swallowed continuously all day down the throat. So you're reinfecting your body.
Yeah, I know.
So teeth and gum health is definitely very important.
Yeah. And then
infections anywhere can leak into the lymphatic system. So if you have congestion in your tonsils, armpits, front of the neck, that's could be draining from your mouth.
I mean, think about it. The tonsils are a huge part of the lymphatic system too. And like, how often do people see like dental infections and all that, like wreaking havoc on the tonsils? Tonsils are a huge part of the lymphatic system, if you didn't already know this. Common causes of sinus issues, right? What do I see in my practice most often for sinuses? Parasites and mold. Mold is so common. So that's why, and then they're talking about like bacterial infections causing sinus issues, right? Your sinuses don't necessarily just mean that you have a stuffy nose. Like, what's the root of that?
I think that's what everybody thinks too, and they're just like, I have allergies, I woke up with allergies. Like, there's something in the air that's causing my allergies. And there's something in the air. It's probably mold.
You're like, yeah. Someone the other day, because it's summer, they were like, yeah, I have allergies. And I'm like, you have allergies in the summer? Because like, don't get me wrong, I get that pollen allergies exist. It's a histamine response. Like, those do exist. Again, there's always a cause of them, but that's real. In the summer, your body adapted to this pollen by now. It's all like, you're not just getting allergies.
I know, it's always so funny to me, but thankfully I never suffered with allergies.
Oh my God, I did.
I thank my parents for that, but yeah.
We all did. I'm convinced there was mold in our home growing up just because my dad has crazy allergies too, and like nosebleeds all the time. And I'm like, mold.
Nosebleeds are such a big sign, I feel like, that people overlook, especially in kids.
Yeah.
Because I've seen that so often, and I was like, oh, they're a kid. They're having nosebleeds. Like,
because my dad and my sister both, it would usually be around like springtime. They would wake up with nosebleeds all the time. I've never had a nosebleed in my whole life unless I got smacked in the face.
I don't think I have either.
It's not a real nosebleed. It's just that I'm bleeding because I got whacked in the face by like a volleyball that happened and like a softball, like things like that, right?
Right.
Never had a nosebleed just for nosebleeds. Like, okay, this is what happens to us.
This is why we cannot condense anything into
okay, so I'm going all the way down to symptoms to address like above the collar, right? Because that is what we're talking about. Ears, itchy, draining, excess wax, plugged, watery inside, hard to pop open. People have that stuff all the time. Like, these are symptoms and they all mean that there's something deeper. Could it mean I don't know. It could be a slew of things. I feel like a lot of the stuff's mold, but throat chronically sore, snoring, dripping, clearing the throat frequently. I mean, again, mold. Nose, chronic dripping, white, red, green, yellow mucus, frequently blowing, nose dripping after eating, tonsils chronically swollen, lymph. Sinuses, pressure, congestion, snorting and needing antihistamines, teeth, sensitive to colder pressure, cavities cracking, root canals, gums, receding pockets, bleed too easily, mouth, bad breath. Oh, I see that all the time with heavy metals. Patches of discoloration, recurring sores, tongue coated white, black, brown, fissure, jawbone, cavitation, abscess, infection found by cone beam commonly at extraction sites of root canals. I'm sure you've heard a lot of that except for the jawbone. Like we said, a lot of those like are common symptoms that people think about. And if you haven't, maybe this just helps you think even more about the things that you consider normal might be a symptom. The jawbone stuff is really telling you that like there might be an infection truly in that jaw, like that led to something else.
Yeah, I think if you've ever had an extraction or a root canal and you're experiencing any of those symptoms, probably go get it checked out.
And I was just gonna say I would go to a like I would go to a biological dentist.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
And there is a website, I believe it's IAMD. Am I wrong?
I am not 100% sure on the dentistry one. Honestly, if you just do a quick Google search on biological dentists and cities in your area. Okay, Courtney's on it.
I just Googled it. IAOMT, the International Academy of Oral Medicine. And then I don't know what the T stands for, but because that's how I found a biological dentist near me that like was approved by all of these things. But you're right. You can just Google it. I know that like it's hard because near me, even if you look up biological dentist, if you write the word dentist, like everyone else is before the person I want to see. Like everyone in the entire world. And I'm like, because they said this last time. That's how you find someone. Anyways, we can keep going.
And so here they see, like I said, mentioned before with the breast cancers, it's resulting pathologies in the torso, breast cancer, colon cancer, bacteria causing other cancers.
Bras too. Just saying.
We talked about that before, but yeah. Well, they're big fans of no bra life.
The lymph, man, if you're holding them in, that's why those toxins, not 100%, but that is part of the reason why they get stagnant there because you're constricting it.
If they're draining from your mouth and down into the lymph around your breast, and then you're wearing a bra and holding that in there, yeah, that's just going to cause bacteria stagnation.
And then I think we just have to get into like the hydrogen it just gets into a lot of treatments after this. Sinus rinses for sinus stuff. I mean, if you're not someone who works with CellCore practitioner, you can reach out to one of us or use a neti pot. They even said someone that used a neti pot just saw a lot of difference from that alone with just the saline.
The ones that are crazy to me is the people that get the parasites out of their nose.
I've like, never done that, but I am always mind blown.
I know. They do just like a little bit of para 3. Even without the para 3, I've seen people get them out.
Oh my gosh. And I'm fine with the neti pot, right? You might be like, what about the Navage? Like, never tried a Navage. I do try most of the really fun toys, but Navage was nothing I felt like I needed. I felt like I did fine enough with a neti pot personally, with distilled water. Because make sure you're using filtered water. Otherwise, there could be just as much parasites and gunk in that. Yeah,
that's another thing they mentioned with using the water pick. Put the distilled water in it because if you're spraying tap water up in there, you have all those pathogens in the tap water. Not good at all. So, yeah, the distilled water, 12% hydrogen peroxide, salt and or baking soda.
I used to always use, for my neti pot, I used to use colloidal silver so I didn't get any sort of infections. Like if I felt a sinus infection start to come on, because I personally, sinus infections once or twice a year, every single year on the nose. And I probably should have been really clued in that meant something, but I was like, it's not just my immune system goes weak. But that's just a personal anecdote I liked. But I know some people don't like colloidal silver.
I love it. I like that xylitol spray. The X. It just comes in a nasal spray and you just spray it up your nose. Like it's very easy. Yeah.
It's like clear, both an X.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking this morning because I was, because they were spraying chemtrails this morning, and then I was in somewhere where it was like a bunch of fragrances and chemicals and stuff, and I was like, I need to go home and spray my nose.
I have a colloidal silver in one of those, and I bring it every time I travel, just because I feel like half the time where I travel is moldy.
Mm-hmm.
But
Anyway,
yeah, do you have anything else to say about this talk? Because I kind of don't.
no, I don't think so. It's
It was
really just
really, really good, though.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, like we said, just look into your teeth if you have anything that you think could be connected to any type of extraction or anything like that. And then the next talk was dentistry also. And she
Rachel
was
Carver.
that was from an actual dentist. So if you're concerned about letters and certifications and licenses,
And where we're getting our information.
she is certified in all of that.
She's a biological dentist. I don't remember where she's out of, but like after hearing her talk at last eco, I was like, I need to see this woman, like her.
Right. We have a really good, I say we, but it's still 4 hours away, but my mom goes to him. But she likes him because he uses ozone and everything to clean.
You love that.
So that's why she searched him out.
Yes, this one's called The Natural Approach to Common Dental Conditions. So her story pretty much is that she was a dentist for a while and then had eczema really, really bad. Chronic eczema after her second daughter was born. Tried everything under the book, right? Antibiotics, acne, Accutane, birth control, everything. And then she had kids and was spending lots of money. Eventually found CellCore and it was gone. Yay.
2 months on para 1 and 2. It was gone.
So she's like, I knew I needed this in my practice. Like I knew that if it could help me like this, it could help other people. And she's like, because I know that the mouth is connected to everything else. And a lot of people don't look at it that way, but she's like, that's where it all starts, right? I ask people about their diet. I ask them about what they're doing and stuff. And like, your dentist should be asking you this, but obviously not every dentist is like her. So yeah, like we said, dental disease, manifestation of systemic health, blah, 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 blah. Causes of dental disease, exogenous and endogenous toxins that affect the nervous system and the oral ecosystem, poor lymphatic drainage, you're going to hear that again, the microbiome, nutrient depletion, energy depletion, and that's pretty much it. That's what she says is at the cause of dental disease. So you're like, oh, this is what you guys work into. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, your microbiome, if you're not totally sure what that is, that's basically the bacteria and everything in your mouth. So if you're consistently eating sugar, if you're consistently eating processed foods, that's going to change the microbiome in your mouth. It's going to make it very unhealthy.
Yeah.
So it's going to raise the bacteria levels, and again, it's going to raise the bacteria levels that you're swallowing.
Yeah. And that's low-key one of the reasons I got into oil pulling, because when I was doing all of this gut research when I first started, it was like people were saying change your oral microbiome, and I was like, okay, if I just gotta swish around a tablespoon of coconut oil every day, I'll do that, because it literally like sucks some of the bacteria out and then you spit it into the garbage. And I'm not saying that's the end all be all, but it's a phenomenal starting point for a lot of people. That and tongue scraping, just getting the initial bacteria out of your mouth when you first wake up so that you're not swallowing as much. And I always say before you eat or drink, because if you're drinking it down, right, like it's getting it into the rest of your body. And I knew I had a lot of bacterial issues going on in my gut. So again, this was just like one of the small places for me to start.
And also from a vanity standpoint, because people always want white teeth, if you're brushing and cleaning your teeth before you're eating or drinking, so in the morning, first thing when you wake up, it's going to be less likely to stain your teeth because there's going to be less plaque and food particles and just icky stuff hanging on your teeth. So it will be less likely to stain. And then we also, let's just touch on tongue scraping for a minute, because I know you love it just as much as I love it. People don't realize that's where the majority of the bacteria hides in your mouth, is on your tongue.
And okay, so I'm gonna say do both, but if you have, like with oil pulling, I have noticed if I tongue scrape like right after, I have less, right? Surprise, surprise, I have less gunk. And if you never tried tongue scraping, it's like the cheapest habit to get into. They're so cheap, and your life will be changed. You will literally never stop, because once you see everything that comes off.
You can even just use a spoon if you don't want to buy a tongue scraper. I've used a spoon before in a pinch.
A butter knife.
It works.
Because I was like, why don't we use a tongue scraper? And he's like, sometimes they use a butter knife. And I'm like, why have I not been aware of this? I would have bought you a tongue scraper 7 years ago. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, tongue scrapers are like $7, but if you're in a pinch, you can use a spoon or something. But you will, once you scrape off all that white, nasty stuff, you will never not want to do it again.
No, never. The other day, mine was disgustingly brown, and I was like, oh my God, what's going on in my mouth? I forgot that before bed I drank carboxy, and I still brushed my teeth, but I didn't like scrape it. So obviously there was still a little brownness. So I didn't. Okay. Yep. You don't need to know about this.
I've done that after eating watermelon, and it was like bright red, and I'm like, am I bleeding somewhere? What's happening?
Yeah. It was like brown, but like carboxy. So.
Carboxy changed everything.
Then she talks about cavity prevention. Pretty much, she talks about like all the CellCore products. Big fat surprise. Ozone she likes, and then a big deal. She talked a lot about Hydroxygen Plus. So also even more so, can't wait for it to come back out because she uses that all the time in her practice. The Rachel Carver. And then, if you're getting mercury amalgams removed, I highly recommend finding a biological dentist because that can be done wrong and it can leach more of the mercury into your system. And you truly should be ensuring that your drainage pathways are open before and taking some sort of heavy metal binder. I would recommend HMET to anyone that literally was getting mercury amalgams out.
I love HMET.
Yeah.
It is my favorite.
Because she's like, yeah, you have to really have drainage pathways open. I'm like, yeah, not surprised at all.
Yeah, because you do not want that mercury getting stuck in there.
You're pulling it out of your body, but like it's already every single day leaching into your body. So as you pull it out, like making sure that your drainage pathways are open because whatever's left in there is probably still being absorbed into your body.
Yeah, and generally if it's not somebody that's pulling it out properly, like if it's not a biological dentist, it's getting all stirred up and you're probably releasing more in there than you want to be.
Good point.
Because I have definitely seen that before where people get their mercury amalgams removed thinking that they're doing something really good for their health and then something major flares up that is connected to essentially mercury poisoning because
so drainage.
Yeah.
And if you're like, oh my God, that's happening to me, literally hop into my drainage course, big fat surprise. It launches next week. It goes live. So you still have time by the time this even goes live to get in it. Like work with someone. If you can't work with someone, drainage.
Yeah. If you can't afford to work with Courtney, go do her drainage course.
That's what I'm saying. It's a fraction of the price. And fun fact, I'm definitely doing a Labor Day sale. So when you're listening to this, there's going to be a sale going on. I don't know the code yet.
This should drop live on Labor Day. So
exactly. I'm like, I don't know what the code's going to be yet, but look, and you'll see it.
Maybe she'll have it by then, and I can add it to the show notes for you guys.
Ooh, okay. Then I'll do that so we can add to the show notes. Smart. So then we're getting into the case studies for her for dental infections, which I loved. There were people who were in their 50s, history of SIBO, abscessed tooth, amalgam restoration, stress personality, diagnosed with breast cancer, which is so sad, had double mastectomy and reconstructive surgery that went wrong, went through all the dental protocols to remove all metals and infections using CellCore protocol and ozone. And she used her on the Flow Presso, which was a lymph machine too, because she really needed a lot of lymph support, which especially if you knew that you had breast cancer, lymph, so important. And she lost so much weight, like almost 8 pounds, not changing her diet, literally just weight. It's likely inflammation weight, right? Because the lymph, like it is fluid. It is fluid that flows through your body. So when you are actively getting rid of it, people look a lot thinner. They lose all that inflammation, the puffiness, whatever, stagnancy. But that was like amazing to me. Literally was like buttoned a pair of size 8 jeans for the first time in 3 years. Sorry, what?
We love that.
And then there's, I guess, 2 more testimonials. There's a 62-year-old female, never had regular bowel movements, tested high for autoimmune antibodies. This one's so good for me too. High dose of vitamin C to help regulate bowels. Phase 1 and 2 for 2 months led to removal of hundreds of worms. Was feeling well, decided to high dose all 4 parasite products. I think this person was a CellCore person because she's like, I did not recommend high dosing the parasite products. She did that on her own. I'm not going to tell you what she did. 45 straight days of parasites present in her stool. Saw an MD in June who hesitated to retest her ANA, which is your autoimmune antibodies, because he had never seen it change once it became positive, and everything was completely normal. Thyroid and vitamin D optimal for the first time in her life. No more autoimmune antibodies. Come on, man.
That one was my favorite one, I think.
Right? And I don't even think we need to say the third one because it's important, but that one, we can just end on that high note.
Yeah. I like that one. So, again, people, parasites.
I know. Parasites are so vital to healing yourself. Oh my gosh.
And that was the end of the slides that we have on that one.
That was the end of that talk. It was so good too. If you look her up and find out she's near you, I mean, you're lucky. She's phenomenal. I would go to her to be my dentist. I'd pay an arm and a leg. She's so good.
I feel like she's from the Midwest East somewhere. I think that's what she said.
Up next, we had Kathy Yao saying how to harmonize the body from EMFs. And I also know you've been on an extra special EMF kick. So, like, I know you loved this as much as I do.
I did.
Phenomenal. She was just a light. She was like floating on air. You're listening to her and I'm like, I just want a hug from you.
Right? That's exactly what I was
She was
thinking.
so cute.
Yes. I'm sure you watch my stories, but yeah, I was just posting about EMFs this morning because I've been sleeping so well at this new house. Yeah. And we don't have Wi-Fi right now.
So literally even better. You're like, I
know. I'm loving it. Not the best for working, but for sleeping, it is amazing. Oh, really? Yeah, so we have 0 neighbors close enough for their Wi-Fi to reach us. So we came from an apartment where I could literally open my phone and there was like 8 Wi-Fis that it would pick up. There was like the electrical boxes, like a giant box. We had one like right in front of our apartment. So it was basically right next to the bedroom. So you knew it was just emitting EMFs on me. A street light. Where we're at now, there is 0 lights.
We're in the country.
0 EMFs. Yes, we are rural.
It's great though.
And I am loving it. I'm sleeping so well. So yeah, if you don't know, EMFs can be very disruptive to your sleep. Yeah. So if you're someone that has tried everything to improve your insomnia, try removing your phone from your room, turning your Wi-Fi off. If you can move away from your apartment with 8 Wi-Fis, do that.
Turning my Wi-Fi off changed the game for my sleep. I just unplug it at night. Because people are like, well, doesn't it take forever to do back in? No. Just give yourself 5 minutes in the morning. It just literally takes 5 minutes. Not even. But
yeah, not even. But yeah, obviously it helped for me, but I just knew that there was so much other stuff going on where we were. But anyway, let's jump into what she was talking about.
I loved her. Dr. Kathy.
So here it has some of her highlights. This is the fundamentals of EMF detox, EMF remediation, application methods. Let me see. So she defines EMFs. EMFs is anything that goes against nature's rhythm.
Yeah, I love that.
And then she talked about healing with frequencies and vibrations. Because obviously, I mean, like she said, EMFs are here to stay. They're not going anywhere. Yeah. So you do have to, you can't just block them all. You do have to find a way to harmonize your body and your space.
And like there's no use in being afraid because they exist, right? I'm not saying you get the highest power Wi-Fi or you don't unplug it. Like you do what you can, but they exist. So there's no reason to fear EMFs. Like there's a difference between harmonizing and blocking, and some both work at certain points, but she was saying there is like a huge benefit in trying to harmonize because they're here to stay. Like,
I had my Therasage little EMF harmonizer plugged into the wall right behind me.
I love that.
So yeah, she has like blocking and harmonizing here. So blocking blocks EMFs measured based on the experience of the meter, blocks Earth's energy, appropriate for those with constant exposure, i.e. living in the city. Reductionist mindset, motivated by or triggers fear. 100%. Harmonizing works with the energy, measures subtle energy. Each individual has a different experience. Based on ancient practice in quantum physics, can lead to moral licensing and may not change a lifestyle.
Yeah. So like I said, there's a time and place for both. There's a time and place for blocking. There's a time and place for harmonizing. I mean, yeah, I unplug my Wi-Fi at night. That's definitely blocking.
But it's very easy to do, and it's not,
The game changer.
yeah, it's not, at least I feel like it shouldn't be fear triggering to do that.
And so, like, how would we remediate EMFs, right? Changing your mindset, like I said, it is not a thing to be feared because they exist. Removing the source, so unplugging when possible, maybe just not being on your phone as much, synchronizing with nature's rhythm. She talked about hugging trees. I know I've been at the beach this whole time. I've been grounding like crazy and I love it. Reorganizing your environment, decluttering, all of that stuff, removing toxins because they literally act as an antenna to EMF. So that's why I notice a lot of the time people who are sicker, more insomnia, things like that, you're more sensitive to like everywhere. And a lot of it has to do with EMFs and targeted support. So, what do we mean by that? Sound therapy, meditation, maybe like bioenergetic medicine, anything like that. I love Hertz frequencies, solfeggio frequencies, my faves.
Me too. I have to say, for me personally, the biggest release I feel is, like she said, hugging the tree or just going out and just standing in the grass, because it releases all of those ions that you
Those
don't
negative
want.
ions. Oh,
Yeah.
so good.
I used to, before we got married, I had a tree in my yard, and I would literally just go sit under it, next to it, every single day. And it was like my meditation. It would just zone me out, chill me out. I would drink my king coffee in the morning, like sitting next to the tree.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, nature really is phenomenal. That's why they say grounding. Like it does a lot of things for your circadian rhythm and for getting rid of negative ions and all of that.
One of the next slides is there's no human nature, only nature.
Oh, such a good quote. She was just a literal beam of light.
And then the next one was grounding. Like I just mentioned, all life depends on 7.83 hertz.
So, like, how can you remove the source of EMFs too, right? Because we live in a very technologically friendly world. Like we said, unplugging your Wi-Fi at night, maybe turning your phone on airplane mode when you're not using it, more distance from your phone, not using it while it's plugged in to a charger. I know no one's going to like this, but Bluetooth headphones are not going to be the best thing.
No, I will say I do own a pair.
Oh, I do too.
I use them only when I'm at the gym for like 30 to 40 minutes, 3 times a week.
I
Purely
barely
for
use them anymore.
convenience sake. But
Yeah, because cords when you're at the gym really aren't helpful.
yeah. I just got so tired
because I got them when I was like in my meathead phase. So I was like, yes, Beats over the ear headphones, but I don't really use them anymore. I'm not gonna lie to you. Maybe like once a week.
But again, for me, it's one of those things where I'm just like, I can't be sitting here thinking that, oh, this is bad. It's marinating my brain the entire time. I can't be fearful of that. Like I do what I can most of the time. This is just one of those things that I made the choice to use.
That's everything in life, literally. But yeah, overall, like if you're someone who works with your AirPods every day, I would not recommend that.
They are extremely, extremely high in EMFs. So if you use those all day and can't sleep or get migraines, I would definitely look into something else. She has a chart of like the different things that are higher, I guess, in EMF emissions. Fluorescent lighting is a big one because people have a lot of fluorescent lights in their home.
Vacuum cleaner shit. I didn't know that was that high.
I was surprised by some of these, like the hair dryer.
That's not surprising to me, but the vacuum cleaner, like the microwave, we know, right?
Microwaves, don't use them. I was actually surprised that airplanes were so low because everybody's always like, EMFs are so high on an airplane.
Well, EMF, it's low. I think this is my opinion. I don't actually know where it is, but I think that it's probably just a regular airplane without the Wi-Fi. But if you're using the Wi-Fi, it's crazy high.
Probably true.
Because I don't usually use the Wi-Fi on airplanes unless it's a really long flight and I need to watch a movie. Need to. Okay. So now we're moving on. Like basic energy balancing was probably the next thing I was going to go to because grounding, like we said, the earth is your friend. Decluttering your house, rearranging for air and water flow. And she even wrote think mold. And I was like, we love it, because those things are like a blocked energy. And if you're someone who you're like, this is too woo-woo for me, that's totally okay. But like, I know that at the very least, we can probably all agree on like grounding and just like removing stuff. Decluttering makes you feel better.
I always ask all of my clients, how do you feel when you spend a little bit of time in nature? And they think about it for a minute and they're like, really calm.
Yeah.
Like, I feel so much better. And I'm like, okay, now take that and implement it every day.
Really go stand outside.
I literally have that in almost everyone's homework. I'm like, I call it their nature therapy. I'm like, at least 5 minutes without your phone. If you want to listen to some music, go for it, but use it. It's free, it's there, use it.
Not me staring at the bay being like, can I get back there?
I'm holding Courtney hostage during her
okay.
vacation.
Yeah, I just took a nice long lunch break for us to do this.
I'll try and wrap it up.
No,
we got a lot of we have a lot to go.
But I do think that we should move faster just so that we don't take forever.
Yeah, so EMFs, we'll stop there.
Yeah. And then it goes into like sound being medicine, which I love because I love Hertz frequencies. They truly calm people. They calm animals. Like they do that type of stuff. If you're not someone who goes to a sound therapist, you can just Google 528. It's one of my favorite. And so it's 428 Hertz frequencies. And if you look up, like there are lots of YouTube videos where you can see that like there will be little beads bouncing. And as soon as they start like listening to harmonious frequencies, like they'll bounce in like a more structured area, and same with water. And it's so wild how it can change things, like literally change the structure.
It's very fascinating to watch.
Right? It's so cool.
It's another good form of meditation for me. It's just watching all the shapes change.
And then she just gets a lot into CellCore and why it's so phenomenal, because a lot of these reduce EMFs and a lot of these get rid of the toxins that are literally the antenna. And we talk about that because I know that
parasites hold on to that. Again, they hold on to the radiation. I love Vired Chem and CT Minerals for getting rid of that. And then also BCATP obviously pulls radiation out of your cells. And then she mentions in her EMF detox with CellCore, complete the protocol, because I see a lot of people do this. They'll get like to step 2 and they're like, I'm done. You know, I don't want to do anymore.
There's people when they start feeling better, they're like, I feel so good. Why would I keep going? I'm like, why wouldn't you?
And I'm like, please go through phase 4, please, just for the heavy metals, because I see that be so prevalent in so many people. I'm just like, please do phase 4. Do the whole thing.
You truly do need all of the binders. I think everyone does, regardless of what you are going through. I believe that everyone needs to cycle through all of them. Maybe not necessarily carboxy, but at least the other 3, just because they all do different things. They all eliminate different things from your system. And even if, like, let's say you weren't high in viral load, like you do still have some, like just making sure you're pulling radiation, all the other things, right? Like it's not just a one hit wonder.
And she also mentioned me support for the emotions, which I love. There was a lot of people that mentioned me support in their protocols that they were using.
And a lot of hydroxyl plus, and I'm like, okay, and we're waiting. She also, one thing I loved was talked about brain and nervous system support, which because she's talking about harmonizing EMFs, but like we talk about that all the time. We're like, yeah, you're a whole person. Nervous system support is a big thing, and your brain support, you can't just go through all the physical things, you can't just go through the motions. That's not how you're going to get that full healing that you want.
We'll move on to the next one because we still have a lot to go.
We have so much.
This was the Driven to Grow Spartan Races Life Bean by Dr. Randy Michaud. Is that how you say that? I actually did get to listen to most of this one.
You did or didn't?
I did.
Okay.
I was packing during it, so I didn't take a lot of notes really.
It's okay. I can really briefly summarize it, because it wasn't a clinical one that you would take much away from.
Yeah, it was like a mental
It was pretty motivational in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of mud runs and Spartan races and things like that. If you don't know that about me, I have done lots of them, so I totally get where he's coming from because he says
Courtney is the person that turkey trots on Thanksgiving, if you guys need to know.
Yeah, that's exactly who I am. Like for my birthday, this is the first year I haven't done it in years. It was 5 years prior. I always made my friends and my mom and whoever I was dating at the time do a mud run with me. Like that was my birthday. So that's exactly who I am. I've done Spartan race once. I've done Savage race twice. Never done a Tough Mudder. Wanted to. Done many other ones. But so I totally get what he's saying when he was talking about how like it transforms your mind, it transforms your body because you're doing these things you never thought you'd be able to do. You're failing and you're getting back up and you're doing them over and over again. He ties CellCore into it because he does talk about the products that he used to prepare for them, which I loved that. I think the rest of it was more of like a motivational talk, how he's like, these types of things like really change the way you look at the world because it's things that you never thought you'd be able to do and you're doing them. And then it's like a lot of camaraderie. Great. I loved it. But I know that this talk, a lot of people were like, I could have done without because like I said, it had a lot of just like motivational speaky points and everyone's like, I want those clinical pearls. But in terms of clinical pearls, he did talk about how he loves CT minerals. He loves mitochondrial support. He loves hydroxygen and he puts hydroxygen plus on his body. And I didn't know people did that because the old one was super sticky. Like I've tried that on my body, but he said hydroxygen plus, which hopefully will be coming out soon, not sticky anymore. It sounds great. He said like puts it on hamstrings, calves, whatever. Takes BCATP before and after, CT minerals before and after.
I mean, the hydroxygen makes a lot of sense for an event like that because obviously your muscles need that oxygen to perform well. So putting it on.
Yeah, I was just literally listening to him and I'm like, ew, it was so sticky. But then he's like, no, hydroxygen plus isn't sticky. And I was like, okay, now I get it. Because I would not put that on and then go run a bunch. I would feel disgusting. Because I did try it on my body. I don't even remember why, but it's very sticky.
I used it before for headaches. And I dealt with it. I would just put a little on my temples, this and that, because to improve the oxygen flow to your brain. And it actually does work to get rid of headaches most of the time. Yeah. Okay.
And so that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Do you have anything to add?
Not really, no.
I wanted to do that one quick because I felt like it could have been summarized very quick. Next talk is novel uses of CellCore with high performance athletes. So that's why it ties in, right? Those back-to-back made complete sense with Stephanie Canestraro. I don't want to be saying that.
I was actually very into this one. And this is the one where it cut off in the middle for me. Like the live stream just shut off.
It was good. I didn't take clinical pros from it because I don't work with athletes, but I liked it because I'm not an athlete, but like I work out all the time. So like I do like to keep my body as optimal as possible. So that was fun for me, but I'm not an athlete. Well, actually I call myself an athlete all the time. So that's a lie. But she works with like people in the NBA, PGA. I know multiple NHL teams and NFL teams. So like she works with lots of athletes.
Yeah, I found it interesting how she was talking about the hockey players because they're always in a wet environment. A lot of them are exposed to mold.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. And then in one of her presentation highlights, she's like, "Are athletes really that healthy?" Question mark.
No. I'm like, no, not even a little bit.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like that's something that people need to know because if you're not exposed to the athlete world and you just see them from a social media standpoint, they look healthy. You assume that they're healthy because they're exercising constantly and playing constantly. But look at how many athletes get done playing and drink a bottle of Gatorade.
And that's so one thing I truly love about what some people on social media say is they're like, someone will come to me and be like, my husband runs 15 miles a day. Like, and he was someone who got long COVID, things like that. And I'm sorry, but running 15 miles a day does not mean you're the picture of health. What does your internal body look like? Like just because you're ripped on the outside. I know Jess Aldridge, for example, was like, I was doing CrossFit all the time. I had a 6-pack, this, that, whatever. And she's like, that's when I was actually at my least healthy. Like I had 8% body fat, but my body was struggling. My thyroid was struggling. My hormones, no period. Like all of that.
Yeah, if you're a woman with 8% body fat, I can almost guarantee that your hormones are going to be absolutely a shot. And so your periods are going to suck.
Sorry, physical health isn't 100% of it, right?
No.
I know multiple health influencers that I actually follow, or not health, fitness influencers, because I'm like, oh, it's fun to watch them. But they've been talking so much about how bloated they've been every day. And I'm like, do I message them and be like, hey, I could help you with that? But like, like that's,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, physical health does not mean internal health. But
No.
as we move on, they were talking about how there have been a lot of heart events recently with professional athletes, which is so sad.
And everyone
Myocarditis.
else.
Yeah, literally, and everyone else. But you think about these athletes and you're like, they're running all the time. They shouldn't have heart conditions, right? Like there was my boyfriend watches Premier League soccer, and he
Mm-hmm.
said one of I don't think it was on his team, one of the best players like was recently diagnosed with myocarditis. And he was like, and he's like 21,
Yep.
runs however many miles. Like those types of people truly shouldn't have cardiovascular issues.
Mm-hmm.
So
And then she's like, what is causing the uptick of heart-related events?
yeah, mycotoxins, stress, EMFs,
EMFs?
COVID,
Something else?
the shots.
That little poke you get for that little sickness that's going around? We don't know.
And then she goes into like common misconceptions with athletes. If they look good, people assume they're healthy. They have fantastic care because they are professional teams. They eat healthy and know how to supplement. They're getting proper manual treatment to support their output. Like most of that's not the truth.
Mm-hmm. There are a handful of teams out there that obviously have someone like her, but
yeah,
it's not the majority.
But not all of them want to spend the money on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what I find in athletes, they're great at their sport. We're never taught about the catabolic state that they're constantly in. They need the extra need they have for nutrition and supplements. They don't want to rock the boat. We teach them to advocate for their own body. Their health becomes political. We teach them to step outside their team for support. No one's ever taught them about toxic load, pathogens, nervous system. And infertility from seemingly young athletes is prevalent. I loved that one. Like, obviously, I don't actually like that for them, but it was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have extra needs than most of us, right? Because they're constantly working out. They probably overuse things like Tylenol and like medications, lots of travel, lots of injuries. They're not necessarily treated as like people by their teams. They're treated as like commodity,
Yeah.
Mitochondrial dysfunction, mental state, stress from media, all of that stuff. And I was like, And so then she pretty much goes into a couple of case studies. A lot of mycotoxins, a lot of mitochondrial dysfunction, which mitochondrial dysfunction is not surprising to me, right? They're in fight or flight all the time. Like that's when you're in super intense sports, of course you're going to be in fight or flight like during that, but it's hard to turn off.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you are such a high level athlete and you are in the media spotlight all the time, or if you have a huge social media following, whatever, it is constantly going to be like stress out. Yeah, all the time.
Mycotoxin remedies, a lot of CellCore products, equipment hygiene, propolis diffuser. I like a propolis diffuser. I prefer a hydroxygen, but it's not a thing right now.
I've actually have not heard of diffusing either of those before, so I was very intrigued by that.
I've heard of diffusing propolis and also nebulizing it, but the thing about both of those, you have to get a propolis specific nebulizer or diffuser, and that's like a couple $100, and none of my clients really typically they're like, you tell us this much a month.
Have you diffused hydroxygen in like a regular essential oil diffuser?
I haven't done that. I mostly do ozone now. I got switched over, but I've done that, and I've done nebulizing hydroxygen all the time.
I might try. I have a little bit of hydroxygen left. Maybe I'll try just in the new house.
And then red light, nasal sprays, all of that stuff. Like, this is not surprising you for mycotoxins.
Mm-hmm. In nasal sprays, she talks about both the xylitol and the silver, which we mentioned earlier.
She said a lot of them have parasites, which, like, we all do. You just have to cleanse regularly. Or, like, do an initial big cleanse and then, like, cleanse regularly. Like, we all have parasites. And then a lot of them have Lyme because they have immune system dysregulation. And glyphosate, which you were talking about Reed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he never, like, professionally played any type of athletes.
Like,
however,
his joints.
He did play golf in high school. And guess what is sprayed on golf courses? Yeah. Roundup, which is glyphosate. Yeah. So, he played golf for, I think, 3 years.
And people
so that's
who live
a lot
on
of exposure.
Golf courses don't think about that.
And, well, he lived right next to a golf course during high school, too. So, pretty close to a golf course anyway.
And then it's just a lot of protocols, which I don't feel like you guys need unless you're a professional athlete.
And then you should probably just work with someone and get your own protocol anyway.
Yeah, it's just like
And
protocols.
okay, here's under glyphosate remedies. Golfers are at high risk for high glyphosate.
Yep.
Hockey players usually live on or near golf courses, which I found interesting. Like, why? They also love to golf in their spare time, but that's 100% read.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And then just before we wrap up, she's talking about Hydroxytin Plus, like I said, not available yet. But I love this because it gave me some actual tidbits into what it is, right? They tested it on a lot of hockey players, nebulizing pregame, nebulizing for the nasal rinsing, all of that stuff during, before, and after games. Lots of phenomenal feedback, which we love. But what's the difference between Hydroxytin and Hydroxytin Plus? Hydroxytin had a like sulfury taste. Hydroxytin Plus tasteless. Hydroxytin Plus also no smelly breath after, no residue on skin, so no stickiness, tolerated very well, and it was in a larger bottle, lasted longer. A lot of people apparently couldn't tolerate hydroxytin as well. I didn't really notice that, but the one thing I got from that was like, for athletics, like this is phenomenal. I mean, of course, you're oxygenating your body, and like I said, topically can be used better, no taste.
I like that they mentioned internally for reduction of lactic acid during your workouts, which generally if you're working out, you're going to produce a lot of lactic acid.
Yeah.
Also for concussions and post-concussion symptoms, which is very common
in
athletes.
Didn't really think about that. But that's all I got to say about the rest of this. And we don't know when Hydroxytin Plus will be out. They keep telling us soon, and we still don't know. But the reason it's taking so long to get out, I did learn this, is because it is so much more potent than hydroxytin that some people that really need a sensitive dose like cannot even tolerate one drop. So they needed to cut it. And that added a whole new can of worms into what's happening.
The next one was CellCore assisted liver flushes. I caught snippets of this one and I rewatched most of it. I feel like this is more your area.
Yeah. It's by Sinclair Kennelly. My one gripe with this is that they're talking about CellCore assisted liver flushes. I'm like, ooh, love this. She never told us how to do a liver flush. They said they're going to, in September, do a webinar on it. And I'm like, don't we feel like that would have been better at ECO? Anyways, no more gripes there. But I'm like, she says she's using all CellCore products for liver flushes. And I'm like, okay, cool. We're going to get another clinical pearl. Nope.
Yeah, she never really got to that. She did talk a lot about liver stuff, which I liked.
She did. And she was like, we are going to have a webinar when we talk about what exactly the liver flush entails in September. And I'm like, okay, but it is literally the middle of August, so I have to wait. Maybe that's me. So liver flushes, are they worth it? They debunk gallstone myths. What does the overburden of liver lead to? I mean, we talk about this stuff all the time, right? Like bile goes elsewhere, disrupted hormones, bile stones, gallstones, liver
flukes and parasites.
Liver flukes and parasites. Liver stones, hidden stressors. So a lot of people might not know about liver stones as much as they know about gallstones. These stones made in the liver, not the gallbladder, obstruct the bile ducts. Congested bile interferes with digestion of fats and fat-soluble vitamins, and a lot of people with diagnosis of fatty liver don't realize they have gallstones. I've noticed that too, because a lot of people come to me with fatty liver because I similarly had it. I find a lot of it's parasites, liver flukes clogging the bile ducts, and stones clogging the bile ducts would also make complete sense to me. Maybe some of the things I'm having people on is literally pushing stones at the bile ducts. I've had people pass gallstones, but maybe I don't even know where they're coming out of their body. They look different, like, anyways.
Yeah. I liked the gallstone myths.
Yeah. Because I did have a client with no gallbladder, and I am 100% when she sent me a picture of like what came out of her, I was like, this is a gallstone. And she was like, haven't had a gallbladder since 2019. And I'm like, so I looked into it and I found out that they can hide in the liver. They don't necessarily need to be in the gallbladder. And I was like mind blown, but this just confirmed it even more for me, because like found that out and I was like, I totally think so. And then she's talking about this. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. And I like the one, you need surgery to remove gallstones, because everybody thinks that. And then she's like, nope, you need TUDCA and liver flushes. But then again, I want to know, like, how is she doing this?
Yeah. And
like, what are you doing with the TUDCA? Please. And thank you.
Like, yeah. And flushes don't actually release pre-existing stones from the liver. And stones are not only located in the gallbladder. Those are our nice old myths. And then benefits of releasing liver stones and sluggish bile: improved digestion and elimination, relief from symptoms related to sluggish drainage like headaches, joint pain, increased energy, improved immune function, increased emotional well-being because the liver holds on to anger, improved mental clarity, and supports hormone balancing.
We love that last one.
I know, right?
We love all of them.
And the rest of it's just case studies because it's just this. Because like I said, she doesn't even give us anything. Like traditional, if you know about a traditional liver flush, I didn't. I don't know why I didn't. I feel like I know a lot about livers, but clearly not. Apparently.
I haven't heard of the Epsom salt one, but I have heard of the apple juice one before.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Like, and so that what are the negatives to it, right? No drainage, no mitochondrial support, no binders to mop up toxins. But, so.
She does give us the CellCore liver flush elements.
Yeah.
But not the details.
Like drainage, estro to support reversal of estrogen, me support to assist in emotional stagnation, TEDCA, I'm not surprised by that. Binders, BCA, ATP, CT minerals, hydroxygen. It really just seems to me like she listed most of the CellCore products. So we're using them all. I'm down.
I'm sure there's something more to it, but
oh no, I'm sure there is. I just want to know.
Yeah, and the rest are really just case studies, like you said.
And we got to see lots of really, really gross pictures of liver stones, which even for me was a bit much. But it was good. It was really good. It just left me on the edge of my seat. Like, you couldn't even include one slide for a protocol, 2, 3. Like, I loved the case studies. I would have taken not talking about the case studies, right? Just showing the slides real quick and then talking about the protocol.
Exactly. Yeah.
But.
Oh, well.
Thus we move on. It's okay.
She did mention liver pain, which I do tend to see a lot of people with.
All the time.
And they have it down as trematodes, which is a parasite.
I know
so
it's all the time with liver flukes, personally. But
yeah. And then, well, I see that a lot. People will be like, while they're taking the parasite products, they're like, I have a weird cramping here or here. And I'm like, it's a lot of people say right
upper quadrant pain. And I'm like, liver.
And I also get the lower left side of their stomach. So I think your small intestines right there. One of the intestines. But anyway, I'm like, that's probably a parasite trying to get out, because then they'll have a big bowel movement and they're like, oh, it's gone.
Yep.
But anyway, liver pain in the liver and gallbladder is not solely due to sluggish bile and stones. Liver flukes often cause severe discomfort.
That's what I see all the time. Again, maybe I'm pushing stones out of people and they're not showing me. I did push gallstones. Maybe it was liver stones. I don't know. We'll never know.
But again, it could just be the liver flukes, which are very hard to see generally.
Who will know? No, not us. If people don't want to go through their stool, I'll never know what I pushed out of them.
Sadly.
You aren't always as curious as us. But that's okay.
All right.
So what was next? We had Houston, we have a problem, environmental exposure, trouble, cases, and trends with Dr. Jabin Moore.
We love him.
He was just saying that, like, the reason he's here talking about case studies is because, like, people are getting sicker and sicker. And he's like, before, I guess he's older than I thought he was. But, because
I think he's in his 40s.
Yeah.
Is what he said. I think he said 40-something.
He doesn't look 40 to me. But anyways, Todd was saying, like, in chiropractic school, like, they were roommates or, like, friends or whatever. So that's how they know each other. But, like, even the worst cases that he had seen before is, like, moderate cases now because everyone's getting sicker and sicker. Like, yeah, we know this, but we love it.
Well, he said seen increased toxic load in patients, and again, radioactive elements, mold, trauma, foreign bodies like a joint replacement, relation to dental health.
It was like all the things that we've talked about and all the things that we do talk about all the time as root causes. But I mean, it's just, that's what
is at the root cause of everything, people.
Yeah. And then, you know, nervous system support. He talks about, he does neurofeedback. Again, I've given all of the tools. I say neurofeedback's one of them. Brain rewiring, MBSR, tapping, like there's a billion. I just think you should work with a practitioner that at least has knowledge of one. Or wants you to do, supports you in something like that, because we all need nervous system support.
Yeah, that is willing to consider the nervous system and emotions as part of your health.
Yeah.
Not just nutrition.
a lot of people may not necessarily be drawn to doing that in their practice, which is totally fine, but they contract out. Like they'll be like, these are the practitioners I like, go see them for this, things like that.
Yeah, if you have someone that just totally pushes that to the side, maybe find someone else.
Yeah, and so he's like, have you heard this? I've tried everything. Antibiotics, antiparasitics, herbs, blah, blah, blah. Do you quietly agree? I don't get it. I've done everything. Organic whole foods diet, moved homes, changed jobs. I did it right. Shouldn't I be well? That's literally what I hear from almost every single person. He's like, what we're missing? Radioactive elements, mold, trauma, dental work, fake parts, including breast implants, and it all points back to mitochondrial health. That's why I emphasize the mitochondria so aggressively, because there are so many functional doctors out there that aren't, I'm not saying they're doing bad jobs, don't address drainage and don't address the mitochondria. And that's just like they'll put people on herbs, they'll put people on parasite cleanses, they'll put people on mold protocols. And it's just not always enough. When your mitochondria is depleted, that's why those things come back.
He goes over
radioactive
elements. So adverse health effects associated with radioactive elements, kidney and liver damage, cancer, genetic alterations, thyroid conditions. I see this all the time. Cognitive dysfunctions, autoimmunity.
And where are they most commonly found? Honestly, your water.
Yes. Especially here in Texas.
We love it. Not scared at all.
We hate it.
Not even concerned.
Most people honestly don't know. Like they don't know. Which is, I think, the saddest part.
To a couple case studies, which good to know, and then into mold. Why it's a bioweapon. And I was like, yeah, call it a bioweapon. It's an immunosuppressant, detox suppressant, mitochondrial suppressant. Yep. Yeah, it is. And it's not always tested for, and it's not always looked for, but so many people have mold. It's crushing your immune system.
Mold signs and symptoms.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've talked about this before, but
literally
anxiety, brain fog, difficulty breathing, increased food allergies, insomnia, odd pattern of neuropathy, overreactive to supplements, uncontrolled candida.
Candida is mold's dirty cousin.
And the funny thing is, people are more familiar with candida than mold.
Yep.
Candida was very popular. Do you remember Sally Fallon? And she did I don't remember what her book was called, but it was extremely popular probably like 10, 15 years ago. Gosh, I can't even remember the book, and my mom has it. Like, we used it so much. It was like a cookbook, and then like an informational / cookbook. And it was a lot of like
traditions.
Yes, that one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I just didn't know her name, but I know the book.
And I feel like candida at that time was very popular.
Oh yeah, everyone's like, can't you do this, can't you do that? And I'm like, if you come to me with candida, you're gonna find out you have a lot more. And everyone's like, what? I just have candida. And I'm like, no, sorry. That's like most of my clients. Big surprise. Okay, and then it goes into trauma in the vagus nerve. Why it's so important. Do you want to talk about the vagus nerve? I know you love it.
I do love it. We talked about it on a different podcast. I cannot remember which one.
I think it was the trauma one.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, so the vagus nerve carries an extensive range of signals from the digestive system and organs to the brain and vice versa. A healthy vagus nerve means better digestion, absorption, and immune function. It can also reduce risk for anxiety, depression, cardiovascular disease, and IBS. Yeah, so I think what I mentioned in the other one is your vagus nerve, when you're trying to stimulate it, it's because you are stressed out. And I have actually seen a lot of people use the hydroxygen on the vagus nerve.
I love that.
To improve stimulation. I have not tried that yet.
Never would have thought.
But this is what I mentioned in the trauma episode. People that smoke, they're stimulating their vagus nerve when they smoke. Kids that suck their thumb, they're stimulating their vagus nerve.
You and your humming?
I was just going to say humming. I catch myself doing that under my breath all the time. Humming stimulates your vagus nerve. So it's your body's natural way of trying to release those stressors, trying to release that anxiety. Smoking, it's because of the breathing. So doing breath work is very helpful for your vagus nerve. Really anything that reduces your stress load. So again, the nature therapy for a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, he has a little thing here on improving vagal tone. It's very small, But red light is another one that a lot of people do. Acupuncture, cold therapy, gargling, again, because it stimulates in your throat. Humming and singing is the first one he has on there. So
okay, and that's all I have on that. Like, he just goes over pretty much what we talk about 24/7.
Yeah.
Like,
honestly, a lot of these. The next one was by Dr.
Pediatrics.
Jess.
Oh no.
Oh no, it wasn't.
Clinical Pearls in Pediatrics by Nicole Keuchel. I think it's Keuchel. I might totally be wrong. It was good. I really appreciated it, but I don't work with kids, so for me, it's not as helpful. She muscle tests. And for her, she also is an in-person practice, and she talks about muscle testing with kids, how it's important with, like, you know, making sure that you have the parents' consent, and, like, it helps you tap into the energy of that child, because kids are literally sponges for what's going on in their world.
Yes, that's why so many kids pick up little traumas that they take into their adult life.
And I, like I said, she said a lot more about me support. And she said, you need products that will move the needle. Learn how to muscle test. Get to know the testing kit. So what you're testing. Healing is multifaceted, can take on many sources. Know when to refer out. Learn how to use lab work with muscle testing, and find resources to support emotional work with your client. And that's just a big summary of what she talked about. So if you want kid support, I'm sorry.
We have people we can refer you to that.
We totally probably do. Yeah, let us know. We totally could refer you to someone. So then the next one is Dr. Jess.
This one was on finding a patient's roadblocks and incorporating lab tests. I don't know. Can we condense this one, because I feel like this is more like practitioner geared.
It's also more of the same.
Yeah,
she's
and
talking
the same
about her
thing.
Own health. She goes over her oat pretty much line by line and talks about her health, how she doesn't have mitochondria issues. She has candida. What's it caused by? Is it caused by heavy metals? Is it caused by mold? Like, what is it caused by? Because candida is always caused by something.
And then she also mentioned how the way her body is, she doesn't feel the symptoms. She doesn't feel the sickness, but she has to look at the markers to actually know what's going on.
Yeah. And I was just like, okay, we love that. The one thing, like, candida I deal with all the time, right? Because a lot of people come to me with it because I dealt with it. There's always a root of candida. There's always a root. You do not just get candida because you took antibiotics too many times. A lot of people try and tell me that their root is antibiotics. And I'm like, no, that's just not how it happens. Like, don't get me wrong. That definitely weakened your body to a point where this was able to be more pathogenic. But candida or bacterial overgrowth, they're all there because they are, like, supposed to be there to sop up whatever toxic substances are in your body. Like, they want to maintain homeostasis. They're not trying to overgrow. Candida exists in our body to sop up the heavy metals, to sop up anything else. And when there gets to be too much in your body that it has to grow, like if you have an influx of heavy metals, if you have an influx of mold, that's why your candida overgrows, because it is trying to sop up those toxic substances. So that's what I got to say. What about you? You have anything to touch on this? Because it was just a lot of her going over line by line her oat.
Yeah, it was just her. Yeah, she was just covering her tests.
Yeah.
And basically what she was doing. So I don't really think we need to share all that.
She's doing the comprehensive anyways, so it's not like a she's like, I'm
comprehensive,
doing the comprehensive
with
protocol.
specifics added in for her. Yeah. So again.
And so the last one of the day, I'm not gonna lie, I zoned out. It was the last talk of the day. It was about brain and health, case studies with BCATP. I love BCATP. He didn't really give me anything to take away here. He is a DO. I love that. I love that he's functional now, that he's friends with Todd, and that's why he was able to get into CellCore. He didn't give me anything with BCATP to take away from this, though. It was just like, I had these people on BCATP. Things improved. I love BCATP. I use it with clients all the time, but like that was where I went with that, and I was like, okay, cool.
Me too. Yeah. I mean, maybe we'll just touch on, like, he has a little benefits of BCATP here. So if people are listening and they don't know, BCATP, they call it brain candy. But promotes cognitive function and mental clarity, improves focus, improves mood, improves short-term memory, promotes sustained physical energy, supports natural detox processes and the gut microbiome. Also very, very good for your mitochondria support.
Literally is the number one mitochondria support.
Yes, and again, pulling that radiation out of your cells. He has why add it to protocols, outcomes. He sees increased energy, better concentration. Seems to be ideal adjunct for mold detox, usually evident in brain function. Better drainage in some, noticing some improvement with blood glucose levels.
And that's about it. So
Yeah,
we can move on to the next day, pretty much. It was good. I was losing steam at the end of the day.
yeah. The ones they always seem to do something at the end of the day where I'm like, you should have put something a little more exciting here.
I'm with you. I'm with you. So then day 3. We are on to day 3. And
yeah, this is the day where I pretty much missed all of it.
Yeah.
And I rewatched most of them. I did not get through all of the breast implant analyst ones.
This was so good. You really should go back.
I'm going to, but I just have not made it there yet.
So first talk of the day, Dr. Ian Hussein, PhD, understanding heavy metals and binders. If you know Nicole, his wife, on social media, she is phenomenal. Hold on, I'm going to pull up her handle so that I don't butcher it. Free Sprouts Holistic. She's great. I love Nicole. But he was talking about heavy metals and binders, and it started really with just like his personal story. So being a PhD, he's like very, very into research, obviously. And he's like, I'm always questioning people why. And half the time they hate it, which you love. But his son is autistic, and they believe it happened because of the shots.
We talked about that a little bit in the previous one.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it was, quote, never proven, right? Because they weren't logging everything because they didn't think they had to after giving their son standard things.
It's one of those things that pops up after a couple years. So you're like, how are we supposed to log every single thing that changes?
And they said like it was since that was when he started to decline, but like people were like, well, why didn't you log it for months? And he's like, I didn't think I had to log everything with my child, which is sad, but
I mean, you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to.
Yeah. And so then talking about like heavy metals, apparently is an Aaron Brockovich, which I've never seen Aaron Brockovich, and how they're not all dangerous. Some of them are inorganic and some of them are organic. Chromium is an essential nutrient required for sugar and fat metabolism, and chromium is heavy metal. But the inorganic one looks crazy different from the organic one, right? So changes it, makes it more or less harmful on the body. So immediately after the shot, didn't know what specifically caused these symptoms, but they knew it was literally right after. But they didn't think that they had to really log all these things. Apparently there's a movie called Trace Amounts about mercury toxicity. I assume it probably has to do with the MMR shot too. And then it was all connected, right? They were like, if it was heavy metals, are they stuck in him forever? How do we remove them, especially when they might be in his brain? And the typical way you think about removing heavy metals is chelation. And it usually is medical intervention and very strong and hard on the body. And especially since it was a child, they were like, how can we do this through supplementation? His first PhD project was on chelation, which I thought was incredibly wild. And that's why he was like, I was here to help my son. Like, I am here. There's a reason I did that as one of my PhD projects, because like my son was supposed to have this happen and I was supposed to have all this knowledge on it, which is like so heartwarming too. And they were saying like chelation, right? It works. It does. But it pulls everything out. Like you need to supplement back because it can also remove the good metals from the body. And that's why like we don't necessarily, I mean, I don't have people do chelation therapy.
No.
I think that there are other ways to go about it.
I mean, heavy metals, I haven't seen anything that works better than HMET, honestly.
Yeah, same. It's so good.
And it also passes the blood-brain barrier.
Mm-hmm.
So it is able to pull it out of your brain.
Mm-hmm. And then they just talk about how carbon technology and humics and fulvics are so amazing for the absorption of mercury, cadmium, whatever on geothite. I don't even know what that is. It passes the blood-brain barrier, like you just said, important for heavy metals in the brain, literally me reading down, and can help detox a variety of heavy metals. It's not just mercury or aluminum or whatever, like the other ones might be. You're not just pulling out that. You are getting all of them. And like you said, blood-brain barrier is what's honestly the most important.
And because it's a powder, it's very easy to give to kids. If you are working with kids, you can just mix it in applesauce, you can mix it in a smoothie, oatmeal, whatever.
And then he's just saying, like, thinking about our toxicity in the world, really pretty much how he wraps it up. Check the ingredients, source for things, drink pure water, diet, supplements, and always understand how our body interacts with toxins and how we can support it the best. Yep, love that. Wrap it up. That was great. Let's
on to the next one.
Yeah. Science of selective binders. Timothy Griswold. I like Tim. Tim is their head scientist at CellCore, but a lot of the things he says go over my head.
He makes it fun
for me.
He makes it fun.
Oh no,
but
he's
yeah,
a good time. Like I like him. He's just like crazy smart, and I would not call myself stupid, but his science brains work different. That's just the truth. Like they think in science and like it's a whole other language.
That's
and
all they
when you don't, like my brother's the same way. Like he'll start talking to me about stuff and like my eyes will glaze over and I'm like, what? Like they just think in science. And so it's very easy for them to just talk about it, but it's not the easiest to comprehend. But he does make it fun. I appreciate it because he really brings it down to a level, but like I still think I'm like a half a notch below that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and his talk was reducing radiation and radioactive elements. And then it says, I think why they followed the heavy metal talk with this one is because it says radiative damage is similar to heavy metal damage. Yep. So
we love it. They tie things in for us. They like us.
He has some key takeaways. Maybe we just touch on those.
I think that's fine.
So radioactive elements emit energy, radiation. Radiative energy moves particles of specific sizes on traveling waves at certain speeds. And again, this is still somewhat sciencey, but this is still brought down to a level.
I'm still like half a notch under that.
Yes. ROS or radicals can cause inflammation, membrane voids, DNA damage, and mitochondrial dysfunction.
The mitochondria again.
Stop the radicals, start the healing. Stop the radicals, prevent the damage. Absorb the high energy particles. Carbon technology. Yeah, again. it's just all, he has the whole periodic table in here, guys, if that gives you any.
And he goes into a lot about molecules and stuff like that. Again, over my head. I haven't taken a science class since high school, but I get it, right? Like CellCore binders are superior. The pH is good because it helps it drive deeper into the cells. That's why we like a lower pH, but also it always has a lot to do with like, what are your alternatives for binders? Charcoal, just not very bioavailable. It doesn't do much. Gets rid of everything.
Yeah.
And the selectiveness of the carbon technology binders, phenomenal.
And the fact that they survive your stomach acid, just amazing.
I think that's good. Because we went super high level. Yeah. And then it's preconception, planning for healthy pregnancy, Dr. Michelle Stanton.
I think
you definitely love this one.
I do. I, again, had to listen to it while I was doing other stuff. I want to dive into it more because this is actually the most common question I get is people that are pregnant or breastfeeding, can I parasite cleanse?
I know.
And I'm like, no, you can't. Maybe try it as I think preconception should be such a thing.
Everyone should be more aware that you want to work on your health before you get pregnant. Like,
yes.
And if you're listening to this and you're like, I just got married, thinking about getting pregnant soon, like you absolutely should take a little bit of time. I know you want to get pregnant now, but take a couple months, even if it's 6 months, and do some deep health work. Honestly, the impact it's going to have on your body
Yeah,
the
I
ease for
mean,
pregnancy
doing the
on your
CellCore
child's life.
protocol,
Yeah.
yeah, doing the parasite work, doing the heavy metal work, get those
Even if
out
you just do the
before,
foundational protocol,
yeah, get those heavy metals out before you have the baby.
because all of those toxins go through your umbilical cord to the child.
So yeah, getting those out beforehand is just,
Preconception is so important.
yeah, I mean, it literally says it here. It sets the foundation for families' future health.
It is.
Better birth outcomes, healthy babies, postpartum wellness, fertility is going to go up. All the
And
things.
especially, and I know I have a current client who they were trying to get pregnant and they had a little bit of trouble. And she's like, we decided to put it on pause because we realized that I really should focus on my health so that for the health of our baby. And I was like, yes, I love that. Like, I love that so much because it is going to make such an impact. So think about it. If you're someone in your 20s, if you're someone in your early 30s and you want to get pregnant in the near future, and then even if it's not future, right? Even if it's 4 years, like think about truly prioritizing.
Think about how much you could
The word
change your
detox, but,
health
like,
in 4
detoxing.
years
Yeah.
if you
Like-
just make little things a prioritization.
Like literally foundational. Do the foundational protocol. I would say most people should do the comprehensive, but if you're saying it's too long, do the foundational protocol. The amount that your health will change and God, how much it's going to impact your children. I think that's all we need to say, literally, because she goes through a lot of case studies in here. It was phenomenal, but like preconception, instead of trying to do things once you find out you're pregnant. Because then you're not gonna be able to parent.
There's so many studies on how the mother's health and even the grandmother's health affects your children. The amount of metals that is in the mom's body has such a huge effect on your unborn baby because, like you said, it goes through the umbilical cord. It can get into your baby's brain. So yeah, if you get all that out beforehand, and that's the reason why you don't want to do it during, because you don't want to be stirring up all those heavy metals and stirring up all those parasites. And again, your body's just working hard while you're pregnant. You don't want to add that extra stress of detoxing all those things while you are pregnant. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of preconception. I feel like if I ever have kids, my practice is definitely going to switch a little more towards something like that. So it's going to probably evolve as my hormones evolve.
I mean, I want kids someday, right? And like, not anytime in the near future personally, but like I'm doing all of this work now because I don't even want to think twice when I want to have kids. Like,
exactly.
I'm getting rid of all this stuff now. And no one talks about this enough, the emotional stuff, the emotional work. Do the emotional work, because that is why a lot of people have
trauma
from literally being in utero. That's a real thing. Like, it gets pushed from the mom. So anyways, work on your trauma, work on your health. That's it. That's, I think, what we can say about that, because she does mostly talk about case studies, which were phenomenal. But yeah, preconception.
Yep.
And then up next, we had a break. Products during pregnancy and breastfeeding. I loved this one. I love Dr. Todd and Dr. J. They're like my faves. Whenever they talk, I'm like, I love everything you have to say.
Yeah. They're just so cute. So funny.
They're besties. And then, you know, when Jay gave out Todd stickers, I definitely got one. Definitely sitting on my binder. I'm here for it.
I was envious, but I also gotten a hug from Dr. Todd, so I'll take that.
More than me, yeah. I never had, actually, I cried to him. I'm sorry, Dr. Todd, if you're not going to be listening to this, but like, I sobbed and he gave me a hug because he didn't know what to do.
Aw.
Well, it was when I found out I don't Lyme, and you know, like, those types of things are overwhelming. And so I was like, thank you for making this like line for all of this education, because like I found that out, and like it's overwhelming at first, but like I feel like there's a path, and I feel like there's a very clear way to heal this, but like still cried because I was just overwhelmed. And he was like, oh my God, I'm scaring him.
I'm sure he's seen it before. I'm sure he's seen it before.
He's literally seen it all the time. That's why I feel bad. I'm like, oh no, but so.
He just told me I had strongyloides and then muscle tested my water.
Was your water okay?
It was not bad, because I asked him to muscle test it because it was the water I had brought from home. And so I wanted to know. And he said it was definitely way better than tap water, but it did test for herbicides. So, yeah.
This one is really like a lot of research, because they go into like general guidelines, right? Presentation for any stage of pregnancy in the first 2 months of breastfeeding. what are your guidelines? No pathogen elimination, no detoxification, no high dosing or abrupt changes. Avoid lots of herbs mixed together. There's too many unknowns and less is more for pregnancy. We know this. You shouldn't be isolating herbs because every herb has an unwanted and wanted effects. Combining them after what an isolation statement says is like apparently no.
Yeah. And I think they just mentioned that basically you're just going against the internet if you recommend something for pregnancy, because people will pull up and they're like, oh, well, Google says.
Yeah.
And there's just not data on pregnancy because they don't run tests on pregnant people.
It's literally not moral.
It's except for this past year, but anyway.
Okay. But so what we will tell you, right, is what is approved for pregnancy. What are the CellCore supplements that they say you can do with pregnancy? A quarter to a half of the dosing. It should still be decreased. BCATP, biotoxin binder, CT iodine. Work with a practitioner. I'm going to say this 72 times. Don't just do it with yourself. CT minerals, CT zyme with food, IFC, hydroxygen plus, and ME support. I'm not even going to go into why. Like, I'm not going to go into every single.
No, yeah, I think definitely if you're pregnant, just work with a practitioner for sure, if you're wanting to get on anything.
And then they do talk about how people for biotoxin binder, yucca versus yucca. So apparently what they have in their biotoxin binder is yucca. It's a flowering plant. But what most people think it is yucca, which is the cassava, the root vegetable, which there's not really enough yucca. There's still not really enough research, but like they say avoid eating during pregnancy because it could be possibly unsafe if it's raw. But that's it. So if you're like, but yucca, no, it's yucca. Anyways, that's, and then generally recommended to avoid during pregnancy: bowel mover, carboxy, KL support, lymphactive, GCO, any of the IS products, para 2, 3, 4, and estro. And you're like, what about all the other ones you didn't name? Because those are in the clinical decision list, right? Like, there's not enough research for most of those to know what it does during pregnancy. That just means your practitioner has to make that educated decision for you.
Yep. So again, work with a practitioner.
But they gave a lot of good research on this, and that's what I loved about it, because they were going into like, and even the ones that says generally avoid, most of it says lacks data. Like, it's not even a lot of things, except I think bowel mover has aloe, and I do know that aloe is like typically contraindicated for pregnant and breastfeeding people. Say people, women, you know.
It's people these days, you know.
Sorry. And then, you know, that's about it. That's all I got to say about that.
Reiterating, I would work with a practitioner if you are pregnant.
If you're listening to us and you're saying, they said it was fine. Nope, we're not. We're saying work with a practitioner.
We're just telling you what they said is acceptable.
Yep.
During pregnancy. We're not saying that is what you should be taking. We're saying you should ask your practitioner or find a practitioner.
Up next, we have practical tips for reducing radiation and radioactive elements. It was Tim Griswold. And
no, we already covered that one.
No, this is another one.
This is another one?
Yeah, it was right after. Believe me, there's two. Yeah, it was Science of Selective Binders. Now it's reducing radioactive elements. I mean, it's more of the same.
That was the one that I was reading.
Oh, whatever. It's fine. So we covered it.
We covered that one.
During this.
Okay.
I left midway. So after this, I watched online. Oops. The other one was Science of Selective Binders. Honestly, I kind of touched upon it in word of mouth, but that's all I got. So skip over that. Then we got dosing hacks for pediatrics. Again, we don't work with children. So for us, maybe not as much. It was Nicole Keuchel and Jimmy Scaringi. Both of them had spoken earlier.
Yeah, and we covered their talks earlier.
Yeah, so I'm just going to give that high-level stuff for how to get things into children, because maybe it is helpful for you, right? If you are working with a practitioner, but you don't know how to properly get them into your child, right? Like, you don't know, how do I make liquids? Like, what do I do? They say typically pour the juices into liquids or water. Juices provide like a visual acceptance if you do like a dark grape juice, especially with binders, because when the children see it go from clear to black, they get scared. So that's why the dark grape juice doesn't really change it. They use syringes a lot of the time to like just get the liquid into your kid's mouth. Stir binders in applesauce, honey, juice, oatmeal, pudding, water, sprinkle in or on food. Advanced TUDCA tastes like poop. So in juice or on strawberries, apparently.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Sprinkle
Yeah.
it on a strawberry. I have a lot of moms that call like applesauce like monster sauce because it's black, just to make it fun for the kids to eat it.
Yeah,
so
she said something along the lines of that too. She was saying they call it like maybe it was a monster sauce. I don't remember the word. It doesn't really matter. And then the IS products in para 3 in juice, because those are liquids. Para 4 in warm water or broth or hot chocolate. Para 2 in applesauce, honey, juice, or oatmeal. Para 1, very, very gelatinous. So in honey or oatmeal or water, because it's like gelatin. But with honey, she's like, yeah, I know it has sugar, right? Obviously. But it doesn't, like that small amount of sugar, getting that supplement into your child, because she said like a quarter of a teaspoon or something like that, like something really small. She's like, it's totally worth it. At least what she's seen.
And also if it's local honey, it's pretty good for you.
Yeah, that's very true. And then just like they use nasal rinses, adding like a pinch of a binder with distilled water, and then the glass nasal sprays that we love. There are also pill takers cups on Amazon, syringes, and like an easy spout. That's it. That's all we got. It's just tips for people that are like, I have a child and I want to hear about this. So then it was The Intersection Between Toxins, Pathogens, and Trauma by Dr. Christine Schaffner. I hope I'm not saying that wrong, because he literally went on for a couple minutes about whatever.
Pronouncing her name.
Yeah.
I know, I was going to say it, but I don't know.
Is it what is it? Anyways.
I think it looks like Schaffner. I don't know. Schaffner, maybe?
Whatever. That's fine.
She probably won't listen, so if you do happen to listen, we're sorry if we said your name wrong.
Okay, so she goes into like, what I got the most out of this was like how she talks about the fascia and how scars hold on to trauma and like trauma frequencies. That's like the biggest bulk that I got out of this. I thought that was super interesting. I mean, it makes sense when you think about that scars hold on to trauma, but
because probably something traumatic happened to you if you got a scar.
Yeah. And like in human fascia, so like skin and all of that, like it's an abundance of like frequencies and energy. So like fascia holds on to energy, toxins, all of those have a lot. Like another theme this weekend was a lot about energy work, a lot about toxins, all of it. You have to do both.
Which I love that, because I feel like it needs to be talked about much more than it is.
Like literally pounded into our brain. Yeah, just saying like, you know, fascia, drainage funnel. There's a lot. The fabric is key to structure, hydration, communication, and more. Like fascia, lymphatics, all of that stuff. Create the fabric that interconnects the spaces between the drainage funnel. I love that. Because I was listening to this one afterwards, and like what I got out of this is that fascia holds on to memories, it holds on to energy. Make sure you're moving your fascia. Make sure you are addressing traumas.
And there's people out there that are, because my mom goes to somebody that does this, and she does specific fascia release, because it's different than a massage.
Very
but
different.
She will physically release your fascia. My chiropractor does a little bit of that. Like before she gives me the adjustment, she'll do a little bit of releasing. But yeah, if you can find somebody,
I love that.
I think it's very helpful if you are
if
you have some trauma or something to release.
I mean, we all do.
Well, it's true.
The one I know I starred this is that fascia is our water irrigation system. It's recently been discovered to not only be our connective tissue holding us up, but a hidden irrigation system, a hidden electrical system conducted by water that sends cell-to-cell communication instantly. Must be fully hydrated. Like, ooh, who would have known fascia was so important? And then like toxins in our terrain, like toxin substances may become trapped in the matrix, can affect cellular communication and the ability of the cell to remove toxins if they are not eliminated via the lymphatic system. How do we do that? Via water soluble toxins, positive ions, get rid of those things. Those were like the main things I really liked.
Yeah, this one I feel like was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. It's
very interesting, but
it was very interesting, and especially not being there, it was harder for me, obviously, to like, you know, the squirrel brain wants to come out. So like having to watch this a couple days later, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, but I feel like you concised it
Yeah, that
pretty
was
well.
really that was like the gist of what I was like, starring and stuff. Which
I
it
just
made
want to
me think,
touch on the inflammation one because she
yeah,
has like inflammation in the terrain here,
yeah, yeah. I was just thinking that.
and how we've we've mentioned multiple times inflammation causes fluid buildup, inflammation, water weight, how people lose weight when they reduce inflammation, but prolonged inflammation can lead to tissue destruction, which leads to poor circulation, lymph stagnation, and a breakdown in communication of your
Yeah.
tissues.
So if your lymph is stagnant, you'll get more inflammation, and then it'll cause more lymph stagnancy. So keep your lymph going.
So if you want to prevent aging, essentially, keep your lymph moving.
Yeah. I just love them talking about scars being trauma and trauma in the terrain and like how you have to like emotionally clear that. And I was thinking, because I have like a laser is how I do MBSR clearance, and I was like, ooh, maybe I should start doing it on people's scars. So yeah, that's what I got out of that one. And then we move on. There's only a couple left, so stay with us, right? 3 more. Practical Applications of Sauna Protocols by Dr. Nick Ellenson. I love saunas. So this was like just so excited going into it. I was like, yes, we're going to learn why I can be even more obsessed with saunas. Didn't have to give me reasons, but I will take them.
Yeah, you definitely use the sauna much more than... Oh, that's right. Sauna.
That's what he said.
He said something. It had to do something with the the way the Finnish people say it. Sauna. It was throwing me off throughout the whole...
Because every time. So what are the benefits of sauna? Detoxing, heavy metals, phthalates, things. It mimics low to moderate exercise by increasing your heart rate and your body temp, prevents muscle loss, increases endurance exercise. So a lot of people say they'll do a little bit of endurance and then go straight in their sauna. Improves insulin and glucose levels and boosts the NRF2 pathway. I know I have a note on that because I distinctly remember writing this down because I loved it. Okay, because the NRF2 helps with recycling glutathione so we can detox better. That's why that's important. That's exactly why I wrote that down. And then decreases inflammation, tons of cardiovascular benefits, improves mitochondrial function, stimulates endorphin production, and more. He did a lot of research, right? Which I loved.
Yeah.
A lot of links. They go over the different types of saunas. Traditional Finnish sauna, which uses gas, electric, wood, and steam. That's usually between 160 to 200 degrees. Dry sauna, which is literally a traditional sauna that we think of, like at a gym. 150 to 195 degrees. Steam sauna, heated purely by hot steam, 100 to 120. Infrared sauna uses electric infrared light to create the radiant heat waves absorbed by the surface and the skin and penetrates an inch to 2 in the body, 100 to 170 degree. I personally love an infrared sauna as my sauna of choice, but
Me too.
If you don't have access to it, all saunas are really beneficial. I did like how he went into like toxins. Well, maybe he goes into like toxins being eliminated from the body and what where is this? Nope. Clearly I missed it. Whatever. How the research about toxins being eliminated from the body, but the funny part that I thought was that there is little to no research on mold and saunas. And clinically, I found it's the most beneficial for mold. So that's why I think it's so interesting that there is no research on it at this point in time. He said a lot for heavy metals. I remember him saying that because I was like, ooh, nugget to keep in my brain.
Yeah,
okay, so we went over the types of saunas. How frequently should we use a sauna? This was probably my favorite slide. That he said, for the maximum benefits, 4 to 7 times a week. 4 weeks is the minimum amount to get the maximum benefits. So there's a study that addressed 2 to 3 saunas a week and 4 to 7 sauna sessions per week. I don't know what type of sauna. I'm sorry, I don't have that. 22% lower risk of sudden cardiac death. This is 2 to 3 saunas. And 4 to 7 saunas, 63% lower risk of sudden cardiac death. Wait, I really feel like we should include this slide. Could we? Because I could say all of these things, but crazy.
Yeah, I can pull it up and screenshot it and add it to the video.
Yeah, so I guess for the podcast people, 2 to 3 sauna sessions, 22% lower risk of sudden cardiac death, 27% lower risk of cardiovascular disease death, 23% lower risk of coronary heart disease death, 24% lower risk to die from all causes. 22% lower risk of developing dementia, 20% lower risk of developing Alzheimer's, 19% lower risk of developing psychosis. 4 to 7 sauna sessions per week, you go from that 22% to 63% lower risk of sudden cardiac death. It goes from 27% to 50% lower risk of cardiovascular disease death, 23% to 48% lower risk of coronary heart disease death, 24% to 40% less likely to die from all causes. Literally 40% less likely to die from all causes. Sign me the heck up. 66% lower risk of developing dementia, went from 22 to 66, went from 20 to 65% lower risk of developing Alzheimer's, went from 19 to 77% lower risk of developing psychosis. I know that was a lot of numbers to throw at you, but it's really just telling you that 2 to 3 sauna sessions a week compared to 4 to 7, big difference. Like, you wouldn't think it would make that big of a difference, but it does.
Yeah, I just don't have easy access to a sauna, so I just don't.
Yeah.
It's not something I do.
I mean, it's not a need to have. It isn't. Mm-hmm. And I tell everyone that. All of my clients, I'm like, it is not a need to have. It's a nice to have. Mm-hmm. It's just not. Like, we're telling you this purely for information standpoint. If you're someone who likes saunas, you're someone who goes. If you're someone who wants more of a reason to go like me, I literally want more of a reason to go all the time. I love a sauna. But it's not a need to have. That's just the truth. Like, it's a luxury item.
Agreed. But
if even the cheapest one is like $1,000, it's a luxury item. Like, that's just the truth.
Yeah, you can find the cheap ones where you sit in, but again, those have EMFs. High EMF. Mm-mm. So maybe don't do those.
I'm not doing that. Okay, so then they go into like, how long should I spend in a sauna? I think it depends. They say that the studies, they were all in there for at least 20 minutes. If you're someone who can't sweat, I say 5 to 10 minutes. I always tell people, if you're someone whose mitochondria is that backed up, you can't sweat, minimal time. More frequency. A frequency until you start to sweat, and then you can bump it up more.
Yeah.
Ideal sauna temperature. Optimal for traditional is 176 to 194. Infrared from 110 to 170. His opinion is 140 to 160 is good optimal for infrared. I would agree, because I've been in infrareds where it's like 130 and it's boring. You have to be in there for 40 minutes to start sweating, and I'm a sweaty human being.
Yeah.
I started doing push-ups. So that'll tell you.
I
was like, I need to start sweating. And then they just talk about like general sauna protocols, pretty much like binders, replenish your minerals, support your drainage. Drink a salty marg after sauna. I love that.
I drink that after sweating outside.
Yeah.
Okay, we might want to move on to the next one, because we're hitting the 2-hour mark already.
No, we have 2 more talks. We have breast implant illness. I thought this was super, super interesting, because you hear about how it negatively impacts people's health. But yeah, most of the research I'm going to start here was on the saline, not the saline breast implants, the silicone breast implants.
Silicone ones, yeah. She talked a lot about those.
Yeah. But silicone breast implants, when they can leak, all of that stuff can get in your bloodstream, awful. The saline breast implants may be better, but what I've seen a lot, and this is just anecdotally, is that it's still very easy for them to get moldy, because they're inside your body, and that is what causes the issues, is that they'll get moldy in the capsules, and no bueno. We don't love that. We don't need more mold. And so that's why it becomes an issue. It's not necessarily what is inside of it the same way it would be with a silicone breast implant, but yeah, not good. She has a lot of research on this. Like, it was really good, but yeah, it was a lot. Talks about like where it can be implanted into your chest, under the muscle, over the muscle. Both of them have negatives because of the way everything can be absorbed into your body, because it's so close, the skin is so thin. I was like really loving this one. I don't really have any reason why. But what I do want to start with is, over the last 6 years, approximately 13 million women received breast implants. Conservatively, 20 to 25% will develop BII. So if the math is correct, at least 3 million women. Okay, that's that. Yeah, so I know most people get saline these days, so that's why it's very different.
But it still should be something that people should know before they get it. I feel like it should be like, look, this is a thing. It happens. Yeah. It is actually quite common, you know. It's again one of those things that doctors don't tell you could happen to you. So,
well, because breast implants have a black box warning.
Mm-hmm.
No one tells you that. But
it's like people getting put on birth control and not knowing all the side effects of it. It's basically the same thing.
High class carcinogen. You're like, what?
Mm-hmm.
So also for breast implant illness, like I heard this in one of the talks. I think it was Dr. Jess. She was saying how you should not be saunaing with breast implants because they are really, with the heat, they degrade.
Mm-hmm.
So like makes them more likely to pop
makes
and things
them
like that.
more toxins.
Yeah.
From
So
the heat.
don't sauna with breast implants. You didn't listen to these, right?
I listened to part of them, but I didn't
get
through all of that.
I don't feel like I want to go into the science of like what they're made up of because most people are getting saline these days anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But like
I think maybe just touch on
in them.
Yeah, like
silicone versus silicone with an N or with an E. That I think is important. It's the most abundant material in breast implants. With an N is naturally occurring. With an E is man-made and is toxic. It's outer shell breast implants.
I'm just gonna touch on I was gonna touch on the symptoms. Chronic inflammation. They showed several photos of people before and after getting their implants removed, and just the crazy amounts of. Maybe I'll try and throw some of those photos up on the video as well. So if you're listening on the podcast, maybe just hop over to YouTube and go to the end and find the photos. But it's a crazy difference in inflammation. Just like the puffiness of their eyes are almost swelled shut. It's crazy. Anyway, chronic inflammation. It says symptoms may begin slowly and progress in severity, a number of symptoms, but brain fog and cognitive dysfunction, CNS disorders, connective tissue issues, dryness in glands like eyes, lungs, mouth, hair loss, headaches and migraines, incapacitating fatigue, multiple allergies, muscle aches and pains, night sweats, peripheral nerve issues, skin issues, sunlight sensitivity, swollen lymph nodes, and so on.
And the sad part about diagnosis is the diagnosis of exclusion, right? There's no way to diagnose it other than that you're having crazy symptoms and they've decided that there is nothing else wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then on that, I really just want to go to the protocol. We can wrap this up real quick. So in the protocol for breast implant illness, right, if you're someone who needs help with that, they talk about explant. They talk about how a full, precise capsulectomy is the preferred choice because you want to get the whole capsule out, because the capsule is surrounded around the breast implant. Your body creates that out of scar tissue so that it can protect itself. It's like, this is a foreign body, right? So we're going to put it wrapped in something. You want to make sure you get that because it's also laden in toxins. The body does not just absorb it regardless of whoever you're going to says. And if they say that, run. Go to a different someone. You want to go to someone who is really phenomenal in explants. And then they do say, big fat surprise, a total capsulectomy is not ideal. I'm saying this wrong. Capsulectomy, whatever. Partial capsulectomy, not ideal. Like, ideally you'd get it all out. And then also address the internal stuff. Go through the comprehensive protocol or work with a practitioner one-on-one. Either way, you really have to go through all of that stuff. That's that. That's all we got to say, pretty much, for me.
I think so. Yeah.
Address the lymph.
Energy and drainage.
Energy and drainage. Yeah, exactly. Like, gut support, immune support. Yeah, that's what we got. And I was like, I know this went long. We definitely at first we were like, hey, this can go long again. But yeah, it went long. I'm sorry, but we had to get all of this in. And if anything, you're like, please elaborate more on that. Let us know. Hit me up. I'll send you a screenshot of some slides.
Or if there's like a specific topic that you really liked and you want us to just kind of cover a whole episode on it, let us know that too.
Yeah.
We can go more in depth into something.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had so many, we just had to
oh my God.
bang them out.
So much. It was so much information. I was brain dead by the end. And then I was on my flight, like dying, and had 2 days in my brain. And I still was like, I have to go have one more. This is wild. But it was phenomenal. I loved it. I'm so happy we went. You better friggin' be there with me next year, lady.
I will be there next year. I will be there.
I already bought my ticket, so let's go.
Yeah.
And I know we're just like ending it abruptly, but where do the people find you?
You can find me at Emily Joy Wellness, website, Instagram, YouTube, email. What about you? a random amount of people that email me. So I don't know. So I'm throwing it out there.
I'm at the THE Rooted in Health. Email, Instagram, TikTok. My website is therootinhealth.com. But yeah, this was fun. We loved chatting all things eco. Let us know what you liked, what you didn't like. We would love it if you left a rating or review. We would love it if you subscribed. Yeah, that's all I gotta say. I'm excited. This is fun.
Thanks for listening to our 2-hour podcast.
I know it went long, but thank you for listening because we really wanted to recap all of eco and not 3 podcasts into.
We did, yeah. So hopefully you liked it. Hopefully you made it through the whole thing. I don't know what we're talking about next week, but we will see you in the next podcast.